Before we get to today's episode of 80 More Things, I just wanted to pop in here with a quick disclaimer. The purpose of this podcast is to give people in the community a place to express their opinions and their voice. I just want to be clear that the opinions of our guests are theirs and that Julie and I may or may not agree with their point of view. With that, let's get started.
I could go on listing things off, 80 more things. I just keep on singing these songs till Avery's freedom rings. I said it matters. It really does. I know it matters. This could be you. I said it matters. This could be me. I said it matters. Work with KZ. I said it matters.
Welcome to 80 More Things, where we go beyond making a murderer and discuss questionable details of the Teresa Halbach murder case. My name is Fen. You can find me on Twitter at FenMN. If you haven't yet watched the Netflix series Making a Murderer, stop listening to this podcast right now and go watch both seasons before joining us here, or a lot of what we talk about won't really make any sense. Also, if you haven't yet added your name to the petition at bringbrendanhome.org, please remember to go do that. I will include a link to that in the show's notes. As always, I'm joined by my co-host, Julie, aka Pom Pom. She is Juju Pom Pom on Twitter. You can follow her there. Hello, Julie.
Hi, Fen.
So, as I said in a previous episode, I think it was the first episode, once I became interested in this case, I started watching YouTube videos, and I settled on mostly watching Erekose on Making a Murderer. One day when I was watching, or I think I was mostly listening to him, he played a song called TikTok Manitowoc, and I really liked the tune, and I thought that song was so clever, and the lyrics really hit the nail on the head of everything that we had all been talking about. And so I played it for Dave immediately, of course, and I looked up the artist, Stacy Seabrook, and I found his YouTube channel. He's got a whole collection of songs there about making a murderer, and he's frequently adding songs to his collection, and it's pretty amazing how he's able to keep writing these new songs as new information comes out about the case. So he's an actual songwriter. He's got a whole slew of songs that are unrelated to MAM. Those of you who listened to episode 1 of this podcast already know that it was one of Stacy's songs that inspired me to do the 80 Days of 80 More Things on Twitter in the first place. It is now the theme song for this podcast, so I'm over the moon to be able to introduce this episode's guest to you. Welcome to 80 More Things, Stacy Seabrook.
Thank you very much. I'm so honored to be here.
Well, we are happy to have you, obviously.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I think to start off our conversation, Stacy, did you want to talk about how you became interested in this case?
Sure, we can start anywhere you like.
Okay, let's start by talking a little bit about you and how you got here.
Sure, okay. Well, I'm from Canada, and in 2015, I think it was December 23rd, I started watching it with a friend. You know, Making a Murder had that thumbnail with this ripped face sort of thing, and it turned me off. It was on the screen there for a week or so before I decided with my friend. It was the first Christmas I didn't have my son because I'd recently gone through a breakup, and so I had a friend visiting, and we decided to watch this thing. And you know, we watched the 10th episode on Boxing Day. It was like, I think 3 one day, 3 the next day, and 3 on Boxing Day or something. And immediately after that, I thought it was just like a weird ending because I thought, well, this guy can't be in prison still. And so I Googled it, and sure enough, he was. And that was really the start of it. And man, seems like a long time ago, but yeah, it really changed my life, to be honest.
I think a lot of people feel that way, that it changed the direction of their lives. And I think for me in particular, I had been interested in criminal justice, or not really criminal justice necessarily, but reform of the justice system in the U.S. I had been interested in what the Innocence Project had been doing. And I always kind of told Dave, you know, as in a general sense, I'd really like to work with the Innocence Project. That's something I'd really like to do. And I never actually took the step to go and I would donate to them, but I never took the step to actually get involved because it seems like such a huge, it's a huge issue. It's a huge, overwhelming issue to change the way criminal justice is handled in the United States right now. It's also focused on punishment that they've forgotten.
Right.
Trying to think of the word. They've forgotten about forming
Rehabilitation.
Rehabilitation, yeah. That's the word. They've forgotten about rehabilitation completely.
It's funny because I went to university. I never got a degree. I went for quite a few years just sort of stumbling around. And but the core of my study was criminology. And I worked with a lifers group for a short time. I thought I wanted to be a lawyer for a short time. I still do, but at that particular time, I wasn't ready for it, you know. But and so then I eventually found my way to the workforce, and I only started playing songs. I didn't actually know how to play guitar until I was 23. And so with that background, when I started researching the case, man, the frustration kept going. I remember all those things, like try to put her into house or garage, or there's just so many things that were just coming at me as I was reading these reports and the queso and all these things. And one of the ways I processed my frustration was I would write things into lyrics. And that's really how we got here, you know, for me. And TikTok Manitowoc was the first one. And then it was, you know, about 3 or 4 months later, I think it was 36 million, because I kept wanting to put all these things. I wanted to list them all, you know, and but there's too many. There's 36 million, that song at the time. I don't know where those lyrics are. They're in a pile of sheets somewhere, but I think that song could have been like American Pie, you know. It could have just kept going, like, but it's very hard. And it's like quite a few other songs as well. It's there's so much material that you just have to decipher, like, okay, what's important, what's going to lose people, what's the simplest way to say things, what can rhyme, you know. I always laugh. I said it in one of my behind the songs videos. It's like the fact that I got TikTok Manitowoc into two songs, right?
And it sounds great works in both of them.
Yeah. And so I was like, that's a feat. Yeah, that's pretty good.
Are you going to do any more of those behind the songs? I like those.
I love them.
I'll link to a couple of those in the show notes. Well, there's 2 or 3, right?
Yeah, I do. I want to, because it gives a nice background. And, you know, what would we call it? Some people would say complicated or deep thinker, critical thinker. And so there's often lots of reasons I do things that are hidden. And so one of the reasons I started doing those behind the scenes is because I was able, as an artist, I can tell a narrative that cannot be criticized. You see, it's like no one can criticize me of why I wrote a song. And for me, it's always interesting to be able to put something out there like that, because in this case, you have a lot of guilters always bringing up sort of inane arguments to the contrary of why Stephen's innocent, you know. But I thought, in my own little way, I thought, no one can comment on this. These are mine. These are my songs, and these are my reasons for writing them. So I want to do all of them, actually, eventually.
Well, I like in one of your recent songs you have, let me see if I can remember the lyric exactly. It's some say I'm a dissident, but I'm just a citizen, filling in as a filament, shedding light on the innocent. And I love that line. I love it. And I feel like that's kind of what we're trying to do here as well. I'm not an expert at this case. I know a lot about it, sure, but I'm not the one that went and did all this research. I mean, I read things, but there are people out there, especially on Reddit in particular, that do post after post, day after day, all this work that they've done researching particular elements of this case. And I'm just blown away. I'm amazed at all the time and effort that they've spent and all the critical thinking. I can take something and read it, and then they'll take it and read the exact same thing, and they'll say, oh, but this, that, and this, that, those things don't make sense. And when they put it that way, you think, oh my gosh, you know, how did I miss that, you know?
Right. Yeah, you know, there's some amazing, it's kind of cool to see the waves of supporters come, because way at the beginning, there was I've said it in different sort of interviews or like podcasts or YouTube videos, is at the beginning when I first went on Reddit, I had never done anything like this. I'd never been on Twitter, Reddit, Facebook, anything. And I remember watching that Reddit. It used to be a Making a Murderer thread on Reddit, and I got in at about 1,200 people. The next day it was 32. The next day it was 5,000. It went all the way up to 65,000 and then sort of weaned off. But that was the first wave of people. And in a way, we all got the early information. We saturated ourselves with it, and then it kind of waned off with the lull of the case, the way it goes. And now with all this added Freedom of Information Act information, these people are amazing. I mean, just a few of the, like Henberry's amazing, Seeking Truth for Good, Tempted Dishes, I think is how you say it. I think that used to be Needless Things. Regardless of who they are, there's some high, like, people think Reddit, just namby-pamby like forums, and it's like there's some documents there are just, I want to know what these people do. I mean, there's high quality documentation and research, and hats off to them. I'm kind of like you. I can read their stuff and appreciate it, and I have a lot of background, so it triggers memories, but it's not at the tip of my tongue anymore. I had to step away because it is an obsessive sort of, you can go, these rabbit holes are deep, and you can get lost in them. And I did, for that first year, really. It's almost all I did because of life situations and stuff like that. It was like I had a lot of time on my hands. So those nights, I mean, I love it in a way. I love the fact that I have this passion, and you got to balance it to a healthy level, So if you're doing something maybe too much and you're not getting enough sleep, you want to scale it back. And that's eventually what I did.
Julie, you looked like you were about to say something.
No, I was just agreeing with what both of you are saying. I feel the same way with a lot of the Reddit posts too. I read them and I'm just like, how did I miss that? Because they say it and it makes complete sense, and you're like, oh yeah, that's totally true. Well, how come I didn't see that when I read it? And
the detailed
no
nature
pun
is what gets
intended,
me.
but
Yeah.
So we were going to start with, I had promised that we would go through some of the 80 days of 80 more things. So I had chosen day 4 for today, which is try to put her in his house or garage. And this was in a communication from Fassbender to DNA tech
Cherry Culhane. Harry, yeah.
Bunny ears tech.
Establishing bias against Stephen Avery, which, they're not supposed to do. She's supposed to be completely independent and unbiased.
Right. And that is one of the things when I did write that lyric, quite a couple of years later, the It Really Matters, when I said 80 more things, those are some of the blatant ones, and I remember that. I mean, that was in the documentary, so that was just like that was in part 1 of Making a Murderer. And you just have to question what is going on here. I mean, it's so easy to look at it. We're alerted to it on the documentary, and then it kind of gets skimmed over. It kind of is like, oh yeah, we acknowledge that, and then it just, no one goes any further. But I'm a picker, and it's like, what is going on there? Like, let's really look at it. Why is he instructing at all? Why is he giving preference to one? And why is she writing it down? It's so funny, because she, like, in so many, as you do research in this case, the people document their own corruption in their own reports. It's just over and over, and almost to a comical level, to be honest, and you just think, why is she, I mean, you can kind of like think, yeah, that stuff goes on, because there's documented labs and stuff. They're throwing tons of forensic evidence out and letting a lot of people free right now because of the sort of acknowledgement that these crime labs are unethical and or skewing results for convictions. And you kind of know it, but when she writes it down and it's there in front of you, I mean, can you imagine if something similar Stephen Avery did? If he had written something down like move bones, or just something, or some subtle thing he wrote down, they would be all over that. But this one, they just are, oh yeah, well, that's me just writing this down. Didn't have an effect. I had to deviate from protocol to do it. First time in my life, but all that stuff is, for those of us that know, it's tough because anyone that's done research can see all this stuff really blatant. But the people that just watch the documentary and stop there, they kind of give it a free pass sometimes. What do you think?
It's kind of like what Mystic Jinx was talking about when she was talking about No Report Jacobs. I think in his case, he was trying not to take any, to leave any evidence of what he was doing. I think Sherry Culhane maybe is not as clever as, as Detective Jacobs. But what Julie was saying last episode was a lot of times she was talking about how these particular people are not used to being scrutinized. They think they can get away with doing whatever they want because nobody ever cares what they do. They've been running things for so many years for highest levels all the way down to, the DNA tech, and nobody ever can do anything about it because they are the ones that have all the power. So they weren't expecting millions of people to be looking at them and scrutinizing them so closely.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, it's so evident in the way they speak or the way they act that, on some levels, I kind of try to be objective on different levels. Like when I look at the no reporting, not writing a report or writing a report 8 years later or something, on some level, I can appreciate that dynamic because that is even though it's unethical, but the dynamic it's a smart chess move in a way, and I'm a chess player, so I like moves, and the state has done really, an amazing job if you take away the personal tragedy of what they've done, but they've covered bases, they do stuff like that, but they have such, it comes back to that interview on media where Peterson says it'd be easier to kill him. I mean, to me, that statement it's just like Dean Strang said, it goes beyond. It's just, where do you go? I mean, the fact that A, he thinks it, B, he articulates it, and C, on TV, it shows you their psyche that they're so drunk on their own power. They don't even realize that what they're doing is corrupt, and that's what power does. So it corrupts the mind and it corrupts, I think that whole area it certainly opened my eyes to that area when you start looking at other cases, unsolved cases, Michael Funk, the Ricky Hotstetler, all that stuff, you just go, And then there's been posts and posts about the sort of history in that area. It's a power central. It's like a core group of individuals have held power for a long period of time there.
They really do have power over everyone. And I think that we touched on this a little bit about the families and how they were also victims of this corrupt law enforcement presence. It wasn't just Stephen, it wasn't just Brendan, it was their families as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a sort of a all-encompassing. It's, bring up the reward. $100,000 sounds like a lot, but if you're in that community, and you sort of, I think it's in Brain Fingerprint Them All. I go, your cops or something like that. I can't remember the lyric now, but
fear breeds silence in Manitowoc.
Yeah, that's right.
You don't say nothing.
You don't do because your cops. And some people took that. Some people took that as YOU''RE, you are cops, but it wasn't. It was like, your cops, because part of me in that closing arguments of Kratz, when he goes, you got to think your cop, and he kind of puts an emphasis on your cops in the closing statements. And I always wondered subtly if that was planting this thing into the minds of the jurors, like, your cops, and the whole, there's just so much, you do so at your peril, all this stuff, it's just right there it's right out in the open,
Well, and that's the thing with Kratz is a lot of people have a lot of choice words for him, but he's not stupid. And he is most certainly a manipulator. And the way that he talks to the jury or talked to the jury during a trial and the things he said and the words he chose to use, I'm sure were very carefully planned.
Yeah.
And so he may have been planting something in their head. And to go back just like a minute or two to what you were saying, Fen, about Stephen and Brendan's family is also being victims to the corrupt law enforcement. Teresa's family is also, because they have been being lied to for this whole time. And that's not fair to them either.
Agreed. And they used the Halbach family because the prosecution was not allowed to go and speak to the media during the trial. They had a gag order in place. So instead, they used Mike Halbach to kind of be their mouthpiece every single day. Mike was out there talking.
Right.
Stating
He
the
did his role.
prosecution's side.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting. I have just seen an interview of his recently. We're going to have a truck go by here without a muffler. One second.
Okay.
So I've recently seen this video of an interview with Mike Halbach. It just seems so bizarre to me, the way his body language and his word choice. It's just him being the spokesperson just seemed odd to me, although I can see why he was. And the whole thing seems circumspect to me. I question everything. The more I get into it, and I'm not traditionally a conspiracy theorist or whatever, but as I got into this case researching, and you know, I try to watch for confirmation bias and stuff. I'm aware of that dynamic and all these things. But the more I got into it, just the more it just all seems so odd. It's a phenom. I always say to people, this thing's a phenom. It'll never happen again. Not like this. The wrongful conviction or framing, that stuff happens, but it'll never happen like this, where it was filmed and then it's just it's a one-off. This, you know, that's why it's so captivating, because we can see it all in real time almost. Yeah, and it's continuing. You know, it's like it's going on as we speak. It's not just the documentary. It's like if you followed it along, take the bone giveaway, it's still happening. That sort of weird dynamic of what is head scratching going, like what is going on here? And I always say, you know, I'm a biased person. I put out these songs that are very one-sided. I don't try to be objective. I got a certain view, and there's always one thing that the only time everything adds up is when you plug in the frame. That's, you know, that's for me. Everything makes sense if that's the outcome, you know, if that's what happened. And so some people said, well, you can say that all the time, you know, but in this particular case, there's just, you know, it's funny because some people might think 80 more things is an exaggeration, but it's not.
It really
it's
isn't.
It's an underestimation, you know. It just worked. I don't know why I chose that, but.
Well, I'm glad you did.
Yeah, it works. Yeah.
I was going to say the same thing. It's an under exaggeration is what it is, because there are definitely more than 80.
And the more we dig, like these people, I want to meet some of these posters that we were talking about earlier, these Temptadicious, or I don't know how to say that name, but and Henberry and TikTok Manitowoc, and these people, I really want to meet them because I love talking to supporters, and the more they do research and I get to benefit from their hard work by just reading it, the more stuff comes up. It's like you could have 180 more things down the road, you know. They just keep stacking up, because virtually my point of view is when you tell a lie and you start trying to cover it up, you're just going to have more and more stuff that doesn't add up, and it's all going to come out. That's the interesting thing.
That's right.
Yeah.
Truth wins.
So,
well, I'd love to host a conversation with you and any one of them. I know in particular you were wanting to talk to TikTok at one point anyway. Do you still haven't been able to talk to
well,
he's
a very secretive, he keeps himself closed off. I've messaged him a few times on Twitter, like direct message. We've talked that way, but very sporadically over the years. And it's, for me, it's actually anyone. Like, I want to meet all these people. You know, I've just had such a great year of travel that I've met these people. I met Diane and Jane in England, Jane X and little Misty's 84s. Literally, we'd never met. We decided to meet. We see each other. We say hi. Oh my God, it's you and you and you. And then like 5 hours later, we're still talking, just like we've known each other for years, you know. And we just sort of go, hey, we should leave this cafe and go somewhere else. So we go somewhere else and then talk for another 3 hours. And it was like that at Rally with everyone, you know. And so I love meeting people. But some of those, I'm just interested in some of the researchers because like the quality of their work is so detailed and high quality. It's just, I'm in awe, to be honest. Well, my mind, it works in a different way. I can take a bunch of information and make a quirky little song, but like you were saying, like how they very linearly they plot it all out, very organized and easy to read. Some of these posts have just been, it's almost like Kathleen's last filing. It was enjoyable to read. It was just so well put together, so I appreciate that art.
Diane is scheduled to be a guest on 80 More Things Coming Up, but I'm
Awesome.
not going to tell you what the topic is.
Oh.
It's a good one, though. It's a good one,
Oh,
and
good.
it's one that I've been wanting to talk to someone about. So I'm very happy that she has agreed to discuss it with us.
Yeah, it was a wonderful visit out in England with them. I want to go back, actually. I might. I'd started the Mam Fam idea quite a while ago, and the quality of the videos and stuff. So I've got quite a few interviews of some of the supporters, but the quality is not. I don't have unlimited funds and money to buy, thousands of dollars worth of cameras and stuff. So I actually abandoned the interviews of Paul and Diane and Jane and up in England. But I might head back and try to recap that. So I love that idea too. I love just meeting people. I hope to start putting those interviews on my channel as well.
That would be great. I would
yeah,
watch
it's fun,
that.
Yeah.
I love that idea too.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice because like I was down in Austin with Travis Williamson. I must have got 11 hours of footage, and some of it is just great, But like you find probably Fen, or I don't know who does the editing, but editing takes all the time.
It does.
It's like,
especially when you're talking to someone like, Travis is going to be a challenge for sure. Paul was quite challenging to edit.
Yeah,
he goes on a little bit.
Oh yeah, maybe I do too. I don't know.
I'm sure
we should have a bell or something.
I'm sure you will be fine.
It'll be fine. Okay. Yeah, I'm not worried.
No, Fen does all of the editing and the organizing and all of the work. I just get to be here and hang out. It's fantastic.
Awesome.
Yeah, couldn't do it without you. I could not do it without you, Julie.
Well, I am honored to be here and to participate.
One of the things that there's so many aspects of this case that I've thought about or have come up. It's for me a little bit surreal. Like I put a tweet out the other month where I listed off all the songs I've written. It's shocking to me to see like 20 songs or whatever it is, and because it wasn't an agenda, it just sort of organically grew one song by another, and then something else would happen in the case, and that would stir me to write another one, and then to have a podcast come off one of the songs, and then there is Don Ethan with his Freedom Mobiles, and there's a few other spin-offs that have happened that aren't out there yet, but it's very surreal to be part of this sort of thing I am doing, but it almost feels like it's not totally me doing it. It's been humbling, and it's been fun.
Well, like I think you've got a song called Illusion of Justice.
Yeah.
And I heard someone say at one point, "Just us."
Yeah.
Is that something you came up with? Like.
Yeah. Well, that's part of what I'm talking about. Like that song came out from nothing. TikTok Manitowoc had messaged me and said, "Hey, I need some intro and outro music to a thing I want to do." And I think he said, "Can it be around Illusion of Justice?" And I said, "Well, I'll look into it, or I'll see what I can do." But I'm not a 20-second intro type of guy. So once that seed was planted, I was actually going into studio to record Avery Road, I think. And he just messaged me right before I went in. And the next night I was just thinking about it. And then Illusion of Justice, it came out in like minutes, just so bizarre to be part of that process where it just came out. And that was I love that. It's like Illusion of Justice, just us, because that's the way the officials, law enforcement of that area, they kind of think. It's us. It's our justice. We know what justice is. And it all just worked. But once again, that was a surreal moment because I was talking to Allie Apperson, and I said, hey, I got this new tune. I'm just got to work on it. And then like 23 minutes later, I'm like, it's done. And it was literally like that. And,
Those are the best though, because then
yeah,
they just flow. It's not,
yeah,
you're not grasping for what word should I put here. Like it just happens and it
right.
makes sense,
Yeah, totally. You're in the flow,
Mhm.
but being in that, because I read this article about Stevie Nicks and I think it was Songbird, and she virtually, she says exactly what the process was for me. She had this sort of feeling. The song came out. It was in the middle of the night. She slept for an hour or two. She got up first thing and got to the studio. She knew something was up with it because of the way it came out. And to be in that process where you're kind of like a channel or something, I always need to pick at it. I'm like, what's going on there? Because it's interesting. And it's happened quite a few times with these songs, like They Didn't Take You All was another one. That was maybe 7 minutes. It's just bizarre stuff, to be honest.
Illusion of Justice was my favorite of your songs until It Really Matters came out.
Mm.
And
Yeah,
now that one's my favorite. But Illusion of Justice was my favorite from the very beginning.
Yeah, it was a good one.
Yeah, it was definitely my favorite. And then It Really Matters came out, and that's...
I love the Illusion of Justice because I have little things that, it's indefensible what they did. I love that because of the book of Greasebacks. I love putting little things in there, right? Like his book title is Indefensible, and then it's got The Wrecking Crew and Illusion of Justice. And I left out Crafts on purpose, all these little things that go into making a song, all the innuendos.
I think, I don't know, I have so many favorites. I think my first the first one that I could say that is my favorite was probably Avery Road. It just starts out, Wisconsin can be so cold, and it's just so true in every way.
I know. Yeah, it's totally cool. That song brought me to tears many times because I'll probably cry right now because it gets me. When people started, I asked for people to send photos in, and man, that was moving for me to see these people having a handwritten sign saying, or just a sign that says, I live on Avery Road. Man, that broke me up quite a few times just to see the humanity in people caring. I loved it. And it's all hard to believe that Avery Road didn't even exist. I mean, it existed, but the Barn Studio version didn't exist a year ago. This is all, none of this. I think Let's Brain Fingerprint Them All and TikTok Manitowoc was about TikTok Manitowoc was years ago, but about a year ago, Mark Hodnott, big shout out to the Hod because he
Hi,
sent.
Mark. We're not cursing.
Yeah, he sent out some. He sent me a message and offered to help me record those professionally, and so that's what started it all. To be honest, I mean the songs were existing, but the Barn Studio versions, which I tend to like a lot better than my own. So. Although I fade back and forth. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, me too.
I like the originals better.
Yeah.
I originally liked the originals better, but I've kind of swung toward the Barn Studio lately. I think because I don't know, they take a minute to grow on you if you're used to the acoustic versions. But once and there are one or two that I will always prefer the acoustic version of, but for the most part, they're just so well done. He takes your beautiful music and enhances it. It raises it up, and he does such a great job. You guys together do such a great job with those.
I think they're great. I do. I'm weird with music. Like the first version of a song that I learn and get used to is the one I almost always prefer. And acoustic music speaks to me differently, but that's just me.
No, I think you're right.
I think they're both good, but
yeah, but what I do find is I don't perform live that often, but when I do, there is something about the acoustic live versions that there's this people feel that feeling I got behind it. You know, I'm not I've got an okay voice, and my musicianship is very poor, to be honest. It's like 3 chords, you know, that very simple structure and stuff like that. But I do have heart, and people can feel that. And so that's what comes through more, I think, on the acoustic versions. And yeah, they're both cool, but Mark is we just have a good relationship, he and I, you know, and it's not always, sometimes we butt heads. Like, to be honest, there's a couple of songs I still want to redo, but they work. And I always look at it like it's just one version of the song. There's an infinity, you know, there can be a bunch of versions of a song, but Mark I always say I go in with a skeleton and I come out with a human dressed to the nines, you know. He's awesome.
I want to mention the live show that you played, that you live streamed on your channel.
Oh yeah.
I loved that so much. It was, you know, that little, I don't know what kind of a venue that was, but it seemed like a little bar or something. Like
right. Yeah, it's a back hall, and yeah.
Yeah, and you live streamed it on your channel. We got to watch you play, and your friend who played with you, who was also fantastic. I thought that was wonderful. I wish I could have been there in person, but that you live streamed it. It felt like we were almost there with you.
You know, that was right before they changed that thing where you have to have 1,000 subscribers to live stream. So I'm glad I got to do that. And that venue is such a sweet, you know, I live on a sweet island. And that back hall, we have a big front hall for community events. And then the back hall is this cute little, you know, 50-seater. It's just like lawn chairs that people pull out and portable tables and stuff. But you get a good turnout, and it's a warm feeling. And such support from that community has been wonderful. So I wish I could do more, to be honest, but it's tough. You know, it's a morbid subject in a way, and people don't know about it. I mean, it's a good way to let them know. I've let, most of the time I perform live in the last year and a half, it's been making murder songs, you know, so it alerts people. A lot of people come up to me afterwards and say, hey, I'm going to look, you know, it's pretty cool to have people come up to you later and go, I did watch that. That's amazing, you know, or something like that. But it'd be cool to reach a wider audience.
Well, you're making a difference.
Mm-hmm.
Every little bit matters, you know.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, when we were at Rally at the, you know, the party afterwards, and you were playing, that was fantastic. I was frustrated by all of the background noise of the people that were making a lot of noise, and I couldn't hear, and like I wanted everybody to be quiet, but I wish that I could be at more shows like that, and, like, you know, be a groupie, follow you around.
Oh, thanks.
There we go.
There'll be one party we're all at. Right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, although we got to wait at least till the 20th. Isn't that funny, hey? I mean, just delaying and
11th, I think.
This 11th of February.
Oh yeah, sorry, 11/2020. But it's like they have claimed to that Zellner is the one delaying all these. It's so frustrating and, in a sense, comical. You know, that's like I continually have these visions of these Keystone Cop characters bumbling around trying to. I was just thinking of a cartoon, you know, like Norm Gunn phoning up Ken Kratz. He's like, "What are we gonna say? I can't find Tom." And like, what are we gonna say? I don't know. Delay. Can we do
delay?
Something like that? Yeah. And so.
But don't leave a voicemail on Kathleen's phone.
Yeah, that's right.
But it's like Kathleen said in her tweet, they should have an extension, because it's not like they can just throw together a proper response to all of the important stuff that she brought up in her motion. Right. They need longer, because there's a lot of important stuff they need to respond to there, and they have a lot of answers to come up with. But I mean, what she's saying.
Most of that stuff isn't a surprise to them.
None of it is.
So
no, that's right.
Right.
And
she's being classy about it.
Yeah, that's right.
She's more classy than I would have been about it.
Oh yeah.
Well, I was joking around. I think I was messaging Allie, and I said, "Watch, the 11th will come and they just won't file anything." It'll be like this, what's the point? We lost. I mean, just let's get on with it. But
I wish.
it'll be
I don't
interesting. I
think
mean,
so.
this thing continues on, and the sad part is that we just bounce around these things like 3 months, but Brendan and Steve, year after year. I mean,
Well, you have a
this
song
bizarre.
called "As Justice Slowly Disappears," and
Yeah.
that song really gets to me. It really does. It's very difficult to listen to.
Mm,
I do break up listening to that
mhm,
song, and I'm sure many people do. And I'll link that in the
mhm.
show notes if you all want to go listen and get broken up as well. But it's sad. I mean, it's sad. Time is ticking away, and they're
Yeah.
still there.
I love that song. I don't know why. It stands out more than most to me, actually, because it touches on I think the destruction of evidence. That's what it gets me. Is like it touches on that sinister quality. Like for me, there's no real reason that happened. They gave bones back, especially when Norm Gone and was the one that wrote the law. It's just all screams sinister to me. And yeah,
Yeah, it touches on that, and it also touches on the fact that we've got everybody's moving on with their lives, kind of. Everybody's going on with their lives, not
mhm.
necessarily moving on, but everybody has to go on with their lives. And all of these things are happening, and all the while, these two guys are just sitting there in prison.
Yeah, and their
And I
lives
think,
disappear.
yeah, and I think sometimes with all of the things that are happening in the community, and as you all both know, sometimes there's bitterness and there's infighting and nip, 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 nip. And I think people kind of lose sight of the fact that we're all here because of these two. And I think they
Yeah,
kind of get forgotten a little bit sometimes.
yeah, I think they do too. I mean, I think a lot of the people that this case revolves around often get lost. There are those lyrics in that song where there's lawyers touring, there's traveling miles and miles. There's we got a lawyer tweeting and judges cheating. It's like the focus gets to the players outside, and it's hard to even imagine Stephen's life. I can't imagine how you'd rationalize any of what life is when that has happened to you twice,
Mm.
and you can almost take the second time, you can see it why it happened, but as an individual, like, man, that is a bizarre reality,
And from
and
such a young age.
yeah,
It's been his whole life, basically.
yeah. I mean, and so what, I don't even know what life is. If the goal is to get him out and free, but I always wonder what is that going to be like,
Mm-hmm.
and so, but let's find out.
Yeah.
Like or the other thing I find interesting, there's so many, as all of us in this case, I don't know if I'm odd but I've thought of just so many different aspects. I'm like, Brendan and Stephen have never talked since that day, or since before that day, but they've, as far as I know, there's no correspondence between them. I think I saw something to that effect. Not even a letter or something, but it's like,
Prisoners can request to be able to talk to each other if they, at least in California, if they are related or if there's a reason for it, they have to request it and it has to be approved.
right.
I don't know how different it is in Wisconsin, and I don't know if either of them have requested that. I have no idea.
Right. Probably
But
not.
I do know that's how it works in California. You have to request it, and it can be approved, usually just for family members.
When I think about Stephen and his response to Penny Bernstein, that part in Making a Murderer 1 where she said, and he just gave me a big bear hug. I don't know Stephen Avery. My main impetus behind the songs was to expose the corruption. So it's not like I feel for him as a human being and someone that's been wrongfully convicted twice, but it's not like I'm a fan. I'm part of a fan club for him. But, I generally think that speaks volumes when Penny said sorry and he said, it's okay, it's all over now. that's the type, and talking to Mark Hodnott, that's the type of feeling I think, or the feeling I get that Stephen is. He's very loving in a way, he's forgiving, and but it's all these other people. It's like that my song "They're Innocent" was from a tweet that someone said, whenever you hear Stephen or Brendan talk, they sound totally innocent and nice. You're not nice, but they're just sort of normal. And whenever you hear someone from the state, they sound devious and like they're hiding something. And it's one of those things that always stuck with me. It's like they're just simple guys, both of them, and you have this sort of quality that's likable, even though like Stephen wasn't a saint before he went in, but it's tough to fathom what that life would be like.
I would be remiss if I didn't say we are talking with Stacy Seabrook today. Do you have any songs in the pipeline that we have not heard yet?
To be honest, I have not been playing music that much. My life's in a bit of a turmoil, so moving and a bit of travel I've been doing. And I've also been working on this other project that's really taken quite a bit of time over the last few months. And that is song related, but it's not writing new songs. It's super fun, and hopefully I'll come out with some sort of I got to work on it a bit more before I let it out. But super, actually, to be honest, I've kind of burnt out a bit. So I just recently put a lot of energy into it, and I've just taken the last week off, or less than a week. And it feels nice to not be immersed in the case and stuff like that. So I actually hope to focus a bit more on some of the interviews, or I thought about going to Wisconsin, to be honest, and just hanging out there and maybe seeing some of the people in that area. I'm such a creative, I have so many ideas that I still want to do them all, and not seem crazy. But I have this idea that I want to do a sculpture, and we'll see where I end up, because this next little month or two might still be, I don't have a home base right now, so I'm just sort of might go somewhere and just chill out, or I might head to Wisconsin and really chill out. Yeah, so it's kind of cool. Maybe one more song. Someone sent me I get a lot of requests people send me quite often. They send me ideas for songs or lyrics for songs or something, and I really steer away. That's not really how I write songs. They kind of have to come through me. But recently on Twitter, someone sent me a title for a song, and it just struck me. So there is one song that's percolating in there.
You gonna
It's
tell
a really
us what
good
it is,
title.
or keep it to yourself?
No, I'll keep it to myself.
Okay.
And,
Okay.
Yeah.
Right on. We'll be
It's
watching for it.
It's a really great title, and it's a great subject too. So we'll see. And maybe, sometimes when things come out, like maybe on the 11th, that's the way the songs really have come out, is something happens in the case and it infuriates me or tweaks me somehow, and then I'll have to process it through song. I think something will happen with these songs one way or another. I don't have any, I'll put a collection together eventually somehow, a CD or something, but I don't have any. They've just been one-offs, 20 times in a row, I guess. I don't even know how many I have, actually. 20, maybe 19.
I think a lot of us are very grateful that that is the way that you process, the way you feel about the things that happen in this case. Because it gives us all something to listen to, and they are so full of real information also. They're so full of actual facts and research and things like that, and I personally really appreciate that. And
Thank you.
I think a lot of people do. I mean, at Rally, Linda K. Listening had brought her speaker to Rally, and she started playing the songs, and people started gathering around and singing, and it really brought us all together. I thought it was amazing.
Yeah, that was so nice. I mean, those are surreal moments for me, to be an artist where you just don't know people, and there's Don Ethan or some car driving by with your music cranked, and it's like, that's cool, and people cheer, and I know all that stuff is so great. But it's been a process. It was just, for me, it was just almost like therapeutic. Just I had to get that frustration out, and they came out. That's why I think they're sort of cool, because I know how it came out, and they're all, other than a few of them, like It's a Waiting Game, that one was kind of contrived because it was a lull in the happenings online. There was a real lull in activity, and I thought, you know what, I'll just make one up, and it'll be something like us supporters can sort of feed on for a little bit. And that's the way it is. I think Erekose's done that maybe sometimes with his videos, like you just put something out just to keep people around because it's important to. And so, but most of them are very organic songs that just came out. And yeah, it was cool. That rally was cool, and we'll see what happens with them. I think one of the best comments I got, well, the best comment, I forget what his name was, but it was on a YouTube video, and he said, "The Bob Dylan of MAM." That by far is the best comment I've read. But the other one that struck me was a lawyer that I sent them to, and they said, "Hey, you've really inspired me." I'll paraphrase. "I'm going to go watch that. It's moved me to do some heartfelt work, in the law field, which they'd wanted to do for a long time." And they also said that it's amazing. Each song kind of stands on its own. It's not a repetitive. And I thought, I noticed that too. It was like, yeah, they're all kind of different in a way. I mean, there's some repetitive nature of them, but they're all individual songs, which is kind of cool.
I agree.
I like that about them too.
They're the same subject, but they're all very different from one another. They're not repetitive.
Yeah, like As Justice Slowly Disappears, and then you have Let's Brain Fingerprint Them All, and then Avery Road, and then you'll have, It Really Matters. They're all just they do repeat the message, but that's cool. I'm so grateful, to have everything I have in my life, but to have been part of something that I finally have a passion for. And it's something that I remember saying early in my life, I don't know how people get passions. I don't know, like, how do you just come up with one? And because I never had one, I was always just sort of reactionary. And, I think the passion comes from the heart, and you can't choose it. It's not like I chose this, it just happened. And yeah, I'm super grateful for that.
We're talking to Stacy Seabrook today.
The sun is going down. I can see it in your video.
Yeah, it's getting
Like
dark.
the shadow,
that's for sure.
yeah, on your face. Is it snowing on your island yet?
No, and I'm
Does
actually
it
on
snow
the.
there?
Yeah, it does once in a while, twice a year, probably February or something, but maybe January. But I probably won't be there. I mean, it's so funny for me to say that the island I live on, because I'm in transition. I don't think I'm going to live there anymore. I might have to change my tag from Denman Stace to something else Stace. I don't know.
You're not allowed to change it. Sorry,
No,
because
yeah,
then there won't be Fenman Stace anymore.
Right. Hey, we didn't get to that. Yeah. No, feminine Stace.
I don't know what that is, so I think you should talk about that.
Oh yeah, we should.
Go ahead, Stacy. Sure.
Yeah, well, so it's FMN, feminine. No, what is your tag?
So it's
FMN?
it's Fen MN, because at the time I lived in Minnesota. I was in Minnesota at the time, so it was Fen MN.
Oh, and it says feminine. That's the way I read it.
Really? That's interesting, because the first time I tried to do this podcast, I was doing a test and I said feminine, and I cracked myself up and so now I'm very careful to avoid saying feminine.
But that's so I said. But yeah, so when we were in Raleigh, I mean, and I think I've messaged this to you. One of my favorite times was we were heading to the Avery property, and it ended up me and Ben in your car. You gave me a ride there, and then inadvertently on your playlist came on "My Mind Drifts to You." Do you remember that?
Yes, I do. Of course, I remember.
And and there was two things that happened. One, that it just came on. It wasn't pre-programmed, I don't think. But the way I took it, was just in your list, and that was kind of like it was a nice little feeling, like, oh wow, someone listens. And then when you knew the song, and we did the duet, that was awesome. That's one of the best moments of Rally. It's like an aside from gathering for a cause, but it was, and I'm so happy that I got it on tape.
Which will never see the light of day.
You never know. I got that. I still have it. So And
It shall
That's
never see
not
the light of day.
fair.
it's a really good version too. I think it's a fun sort of.
Stacy, I'll
It's
send you
like,
some cookies so you can send
yeah,
it to me.
okay, yeah. But what hit me in that video of it is that you knew the song, and that was cool. That really is a heartfelt feeling I got, because it's like, wow, someone knows. It's like you knew it like I know it. Like you'd listened to it enough, and that's really cool, because you can see views on YouTube and stuff, but you don't know what people feel. And so in that moment, that was really sweet. So thank you for that.
That's a great song. Thank you for writing it.
Yeah, yeah. Those other songs, I don't know.
There's some
I don't
great
know.
stuff in there. I will definitely be linking that to this.
Oh yeah, yeah.
There's some great stuff there.
There's so many more. I don't know how long I'll be singing for, but if the money keeps coming in and life provides, then I'll just keep going back to Mark whenever I can fit in. And I've got so many songs, that, and more keep coming. That's the funny thing. It's like, I don't think I'm a songwriter, but then I look at it and I'm like, wow, I think in the last year I wrote 20 songs, like.
You're a songwriter.
I think you're a songwriter now. Sorry.
I think so too.
Yeah. No,
and
but
I'm not
inside
sorry.
yourself. No.
Not sorry at all.
Sorry, not sorry.
Yeah. But those are heartfelt ones too. On one of my behind the scenes videos, those songs are like, this one poet coined the term night blooming tumors. It's like they're processing misery or failed relationships. And so I really genuinely want to get to a brighter spot and start writing songs that uplift people, rather than, they're all. Brad Dassey often messages me and says, hey, send me a upbeat song I can play on my radio. I'm like, don't know. Don't know if I have any of those, to be honest. And so we'll see. Maybe I'll get there. Become a DJ or something. No.
Well, you'll definitely get there after this is all over and they correct this mistake and Brendan and Stephen get out of prison. And then I'm sure we will have some very upbeat, happy, positive
party.
Stacy Seabrook music to party to.
Let's hope. Yeah. Let's
hope.
Yes. One thing I did want to touch on was the subject of Brendan's release and clemency and stuff, because there's a worry I have that, first of all, when people just solely support Brendan, it kind of bugs me a bit, although I can see why. It's a simple, there's a lot of it's a tragic case. I mean, the poor boy, but I worry about splitting the two, because I worry about this clemency push for Brendan as a way to use Brendan again and allow Stephen's story to die. That's one of my, I don't know how that plays out, or I haven't thought of it, but it is one of my worries, that it's like a payoff. Hey, we're going to let Brendan out because everyone knows, he's got a life ahead of him, and we're just going to let Steve. I hope that does not happen, but that is this chess game that they play. There's so many potentials, I would love to be in Kathleen's mind. I'd love to see how she works, because I think she sees the same stuff, but
well,
we'll
we're not going to let that happen.
No,
that's right. Yeah.
That's what I was just going to say. I think that's a valid concern, but I don't think that's really that possible. I don't think any of us will allow that to happen. I don't think Kathleen's going to allow that to happen.
Right.
I don't think so.
What are your guys' view on the Court of Appeal and the chances of some sort of systemic corruption being involved with that decision once it gets there?
I have a lot more hope that the Court of Appeals will at least give all of this fair consideration than the Circuit Court has pretended to. I think that the Court of Appeals has already shown us that they're willing to consider things on their actual merits. And so I do have a lot more hope that they will at least consider it. I don't know that much about the Court of Appeals judges and how involved they are with any of the other, I guess you could call them players in this situation, and any of the other cases that all of those people were involved in. But from what I've seen in the proceedings of Teresa's case, they seem to be more objective, and they seem to be paying better attention to the things
Right.
that need to be paid attention to.
Yeah.
That's just my opinion, but
Mhm.
that's how I feel about it.
What do you think, Fen?
I think Julie's right, but I'm cautious. I need to do some research on who these people are because I really don't know. I have
Right.
seen some talk of at least one judge possibly having to recuse him or herself.
Yeah, that's true. Gundrum. Yeah. He's the one that was in MAM once. You know, he definitely will. But yeah, it's interesting. You know, I'm so jaded that I go, I don't even have to know who they are. I just see it happening, you know, because all it takes is one bad judgment. It doesn't matter. It delays it for another probably years.
Well, look what happened to Brendan.
Yeah. And that's the other thing with this case is it's amazing how many people from the Avery case are in positions of importance now. Gundrum,
Very
he's up
true
in
also.
Court of Appeals. Mark Wiegert in charge of the evidence, sheriff. I forget, Schimmel's a judge now, and it doesn't have to be in the case that you're trying. It's just that they're in circles of influence, and that's how, you know, things are influenced. So it's going to be interesting to see. I'm hoping for the best, you know.
I am too.
Yeah.
That's a very good point, what you said. And it's because, you know, when this happened and they had the trials and all of that, yes, the footage and all of the things for the documentary, for the docuseries were being recorded, but none of this was released until 2015. So there was not a majority of people paying attention to any of this until 2015, 2016, really.
Right.
And so all of those people who were involved had the freedom to move up in power because nobody was looking at them crooked at the time, you know, nobody was looking at them sideways going, what are you up to? Because it was business as usual.
Yeah, but it also, I think, they ended up in the positions just in case. Like that's how, you know, back to Kratz, he is diabolical thinking. That's my own personal opinion. I don't know, you know, but it's like he not only manipulates it, everything is thought out in his mind. You know, every word, every angle. I know those people, and he's probably just spent so much energy on his life just thinking. It's like chess moves, you know. It's hard to believe for low-level players like me that someone could be like 20 moves ahead in chess. You know, there's just too many. Some guys are like that, and so I think he's like that on the devious side. So, yeah, but okay, we're probably digressing. Okay.
We never did get to Fenman Stace.
Oh yeah.
Oh, well, that was that. That was the
it's probably my
duet.
fault.
That was the duet. No, that's the name of our band. Once we do the duet again.
That's right. We were going to get T-shirts that said Fenman Stace on them because I'm Fen MN and he's Denman Stace. You have a number after that though, don't you?
On Twitter, I do one just because you had to. I don't know who the other Denman Stace is, or they said it was taken or something. So I had to put one. But I was grateful. I was grateful that it was one. It's good, better than 23 or something. But
that's true.
But you know what? On a closing note, I'd like to say Happy Thanksgiving to all those that are going to be enjoying this year's Thanksgiving, and so much to be grateful for.
Indeed.
Gratitude is the attitude. So,
that's right.
Yeah. Yes. And thank you for having me on. It's been wonderful. Let's do it again.
Yeah, definitely. We'll do it again.
Thank you for being here.
Okay.
So, all right. I didn't actually write a closing, but I think I know what I want to say.
Okay.
Kinda.
Do it.
So I guess that'll wrap it up for this Stacy Seabrook episode of 80 More Things. If you have a topic you want us to cover, or if you want to be a guest on a future episode, visit our website at 80morethings.com. And there's a form there for you to fill out and let us know what you want to talk about. Also, be sure to check out Stacy Seabrook on YouTube. I'll put a bunch of links in the show notes for this, and you can find all of those links on the 80 More Things website as well. Thanksgiving is coming up and the holiday season is coming up, so try to remember Stephen and Brendan during this time. And if you're interested in writing to Stephen and Brendan, links to how to write to them are on the 80 More Things website. And I've also included links to their commissary. If you are in a gift-giving mood for the holiday season, feel free to donate to their commissaries as well. They can always use it. And until next time, take care.
Thanks,
Bye.
Van. Thanks, Julie.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Stacy.
Let's keep talking about Avery. Yeah, let's keep talking till he's set free. Oh, you just listen, I think you'll see why it matters. It really matters. Put aside the documentary, the state's version ludicrosy. Oh, all their claims so blatantly get torn to tatters. I say that matters. I bet you heard about Hood last sweat, but maybe you ain't heard this yet. 19 more times the DNA that was left anywhere else that day. I think that matters. I really do. I think it matters. An ex-boyfriend with a day planner page, and yet they did not investigate. And who knows why, and who can say why he was signed into the crime scene that day. I think that matters. I really do. I think it matters. How about that barrel that once was seized, but then returned to the Averys? The bones were found the next day, but not one photograph exists of where they lay. I think that matters. I really do. I say it matters. I could go on listing things off, any more things. I just keep on singing these songs till Avery's freedom rings.